Alright, well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about, what is it called? Spider-Man Homecoming? Stick around and find out. Oh, crap, how's it go? Oh yeah. Boy, at the beginning of this movie, all right, I'll get to that in a second. Hi, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions, here with my uncut review of Spider-Man Homecoming. And at the very beginning of Spider-Man Homecoming, when they started putting the logo up there, they played the theme to the old TV show, like cartoon, Spider-Man, Spider-Man, but with an orchestra trying to make it sound cinematic, and I was like, oh no. Is that really what they're going to use as like the Spider-Man hero theme whenever he appears to do heroic things in this movie? Please no. Please no. I thought it was getting off to a really bad start. But that was the last thing in this movie that really like made me cringe at all or like be concerned about the quality of my experience watching it. I really enjoyed this movie. Now, if you are familiar with my reviews of past Marvel movies, I apologize. I'm going to talk about how I don't typically like them, but that's only to give a frame of reference to those who are not familiar with my with my taste regarding the Marvel movies. I don't tend to find them funny, and I think I've figured out why. I think because the jokes that come out of the characters' mouths, the witty banter and stuff, I feel like you could swap it between any of the characters and it wouldn't make a difference. It's just like, oh, here's a good little bit of, witticism that we're going to have a character just say as a throwaway jokey line in the middle of combat. Who got the last joke? He got it? Okay, we'll give this line to this other person. So in other words, these punchlines could be swapped around. They don't say much, if anything at all, about that particular character. They are not born out of who that character is. And I think that in recent Marvel movies, they especially like the team up ones, they haven't given the time that I would like for the characters to breathe, for us to get to know who they are, what motivates them, what they care about. And that mistake was not made, I didn't feel, in this movie. I felt like the characters were given the chances they needed to breathe as they were being introduced. So that when they said something funny or something funny happened, there's something, it all grew out of who they individually were. So let me talk a little bit just about what this movie felt like to me, the plot, the script, just the tone in general. It's not an origin story. They basically, there's a little opening where Peter is taking us through these webcam journal things that he made, these vlogs of like his experience with Civil War and how that came about, what led up to it, and so it was a neat little recap of his involvement in the movie Captain America: Civil War. And then we really don't get into the death of Uncle Ben. It seems like that's something that probably happened because he's living alone with Aunt May, and he mentions that like something bad happened to her recently, and so, but there's not like a weight on Peter. And this was interesting to me. Of all the this is like the third attempt at like a Spider-Man franchise, and it's the first time where I felt like he has not yet learned the lesson of Uncle Ben. In other words, the whole idea of power, and with great power comes great responsibility. He learns that lesson in the last two movie franchises, and I think we would say classically in the comics, because of his role in Uncle Ben's death. If you don't remember, his Uncle Ben was killed by a criminal that Spider-Man could have stopped when he saw him earlier that day. But because of his own pride, he chose not to intervene and allowed that criminal to get away. And so that criminal later on, even though Peter couldn't have known this would happen, ended up killing his Uncle Ben in like a mugging. And so that, from the very beginning, was part of that. Was before Peter. Well, it was just after he properly became Spider-Man. Before really he was fighting crime, though, and it's what led to his main motivation of going out and doing the right thing, because with great power comes great responsibility. Well, here, I mean, you could argue that maybe he's learned that lesson, but it doesn't seem like it's stuck very well, because he really just seems to be about having fun. And even though, you know, that's a different take on the character, he's not weighed down by that responsibility of you know, what came of Uncle Ben's death. It's still fun. It's still, I think, a valid take on Spider-Man. Yeah, it's, if they eventually get around to telling us the Uncle Ben story in flashbacks, I'll have trouble maybe reconciling it, you know, if he really goes through this weighty experience, why he would suddenly be all light and carefree and irresponsible and stuff in this movie. Anyway, irresponsible. I guess it's all a matter of degrees and, you know. But anyway, yeah, there's no origin story. The stakes are pretty small scale compared to lots of big Marvel movies, and I think that's the right decision here. You make him, as Iron Man says, a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And it allows us to get into the characters more, but don't mistake that as a sign that, like, the hero is not going to be tested. He's not going to be pushed to his absolute limits, you know. In fact, they borrow some visuals and a little beat from a famous Spider-Man comic in which he is absolutely pushed to his limits to lift something off of his back. And so they really do allow still for drama and pushing this character to his absolute physical and emotional limits. Dang it, I've got something in my eye. There's like these are uncut reviews. I can't stop. I can't stop. So yeah, like, what did I say? Oh yeah, the humor is also very character driven. I really appreciated that. Still lots of big action, even with the smaller stakes. When I say smaller stakes, it's really more about who will be affected if the hero fails to stop the villain. And compared to what we've seen in recent Marvel movies, the stakes are pretty small in terms of who will be affected. I mean, I suppose you could argue potentially in the long term, many people will be affected, but in the immediate future, if he doesn't stop the villain, the stakes are, you know, relatively small compared to other Marvel movies. But the action is still very big and, you know, and spectacular. And there's a great twist connecting the two major plot threads, kind of the more personal plot thread going on in Peter Parker's life with, you know, the big action, gotta stop the villain plot, you know. So there was a nice twist that I didn't expect toward the last third or last fourth of the movie that it was wonderful. It was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. And I think it brought home the big gotta stop the bad guy story to that more personal level that I appreciated. So let's talk a little bit just about the cast. Tom Holland is up first, and this is, I don't know him from anything apart from being Spider-Man. But I really enjoyed him in this, and I think he's been doing a fine job. I don't have a favorite yet. Of all the Spider-Mans, I don't have a favorite yet. Marissa Tomei played his I was going to say his mother, his Aunt May, and she does a great job of kind of like, it seems like they're maybe drawing from the Ultimate Marvel Universe version of Aunt May, not in terms of how she's written, but just in terms of like who she is. The Ultimate Marvel Universe Aunt May was a little more hip, she was more modern, she had more modern haircut, she wasn't this kind of like health constantly failing old woman, you know, that was, you know, a shut-in at home, you know. And Marissa Tomei's version is even younger than who was the gal that did Aunt May in the last movie. She's like, we like her, we really like her, whatever her name is, I can't remember. She's a famous actress. Anyway, so that already struck me as young because she hardly had any gray hair, and they go even younger with Marissa Tomei, and they even treat her as like someone that like everyone locally is attracted to. All the people, all like the adults in Peter's life, not all of them, but like a good chunk of them, you know, are asking about his Aunt May and how she's doing and stuff, and makes them uncomfortable that they see her as like this sexual object to be pursued. Tony Stark is into her and stuff, and anyway, but I like her as this kind of like young. Kind of, I don't want to say hip, but certainly more connected to Peter Parker's stage of life than that classic version of Aunt May, where she's very much off in her own world. She's just a you know, one or two generations definitely separated from Peter and his life experiences. So yeah, I really like this version of Aunt May. Jacob Batalon. This is also a person that I don't recognize. I don't know if you do, but he plays Peter's. I'm not sure what the ethnicity is, if he's Hawaiian or Alaskan or Asian or, I don't know, do Hawaiians and Alaskans count as I don't know my ethnicities. But anyway, I'm going to say Asian. He's his Asian buddy at school, and he's kind of like this, he's that fun, kind of smiling, overweight buddy who is good with like computers, and they're all really smart because they go to this smart people, high school. But he's like this. I feel like he kind of, in a sense, represents us, the fanboy, who's just kind of along for the ride and excited to get a taste of this crazy world of superheroes, and he just makes a great friend for Peter Parker, a great confidant. There was, one thing that I appreciated about this movie is its sweetness. Normally I really like movies that are more serious and more heavy, but if they're going to go in a direction that is not like that is not serious and heavy, then endearing is a nice alternate choice, I suppose, for me. And I found these characters, the performances by these actors, the way they were written, the things that they were dealing with in life, all very endearing. Not because it wasn't like heavy and weighty and stuff, and so I wasn't engaged emotionally in that way, but I was engaged emotionally with their stories because they were dealing with like high school type drama and just things that seem like such a big deal in high school that really aren't that big of a deal. But I can still empathize because I remember what it was like to think of these really transient things in high school as monumental things, and one example would be the love interest in the story. Her name is Liz. And she is really not much of a character herself. I would compare her to the way that they treat the love interest in the Flash TV series, at least what I saw of her the first 1.5 season or so, where she is not very interesting as a character herself. She's just kind of like a prize, this beautiful girl that's always smiling and always has a positive attitude and stuff like that, and is just kind of a prize for the hero to yearn for, but not really interesting or much of a character that you can relate to in and of herself. And while that doesn't work for me in a TV series that is supposed to be, I feel, in at least part, or at least in that subplot, pursuing a relationship, developing a relationship. I think when the story is about the relationship, then both halves of that relationship need to be interesting people. But here, Liz doesn't need to be really interesting for me because it's not about her relationship. It's about Peter wanting to pursue the beautiful girl in the midst of all the drama that he has going on in his life. So anyway, I thought that she did a fine job in that role. The thing that I think I appreciated most about both the actors and the way the characters were written is that they allowed room for subtext. They allowed room for the actors to bring things to the script that if you were just reading the script at face value, you wouldn't see there, but they add a layer of like uncertainty and nervousness. You can read behind their eyes what they're thinking, how they're trying to navigate awkward situations. I really enjoy a script that allows actors to perform and bring more layers than what is actually on the written page. That just allows me to connect. It makes the characters feel more relatable to me, and I feel like, and I find myself more easily investing in their story and in what they care about. All right, stunts and visuals, just very briefly. I feel like they're getting increasingly good at placing Spider-Man in real-world environments. A CG Spider-Man, that is. They're doing things with the way he moves and the physics of his movements, I guess, in subtle ways. How, like, there was one moment where he was walking across a web, and then he, like, jumped and turned around, and the way he landed and, like, balanced himself right there, I was like, that feels more real. That it felt like he was actually dealing with, like he was actually balancing, and actually making quick adjustments with his body weight. It just, these subtle things that, I spend so much more time talking about them just now than you actually see them happen. But they make the whole thing feel more real. They make Spider-Man feel far more real than he did, especially in the Tobey Maguire trilogy, where, he moved with fluid grace, and you could argue it's all about the fluid grace of Spider-Man, and that's why he looks so, really it was just CG wasn't capable of some of those finer joint and physics details. But it's getting better and better all the time, and, while my eyes are still cursed to pick out CG, I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing. It's getting closer and closer to that great and majestic day when I can be completely fooled and just not be taken out of the movie ever. Let's see. Otherwise, the special effects are solid status quo. I really enjoyed what was going on. There was one shot in the climax where with the main villain, where I was like, whoa, I'm picking up a really bad green screen vibe going on behind him. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I was looking for it. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I thought I have no complaints at all about the special effects, really. Okay, so I always try to ask myself, when I'm taking in entertainment? Is there anything of worthwhile spiritual, moral, or philosophical significance that might stimulate worthwhile thought or conversation as a result of taking in this entertainment, be it a book or a game or a movie or something like that? In this case, I think maybe. I don't know. I think I picked up on some stuff, but I'm always kind of like looking for that stuff at the same time. The two things I guess that I noticed, one would be not getting credit or being appreciated for the good things that you do or the things that you are capable of. Peter is very underestimated by Tony Stark. One of the main, the main plot of the movie is that he just Spider-Man just helped out with the whole Civil War events. Now he's like, when's the next Avengers mission? And Tony kind of passes him off to his right-hand man, Happy Hogan, and just says, well, Happy will be in touch, and he'll let you know. And Peter's just waiting for months and months, and he's not getting any kind of missions or anything, exciting to do. He's just helping out with local little, robberies and at best, and sometimes even screwing things up, and trying to, one guy he attacks who wasn't even committing a crime. It was a really funny moment. He feels like he's capable of so much more, and that his capabilities are not being tested, they're not being appreciated, they're not being taken advantage of, and so there's this sense of entitlement that Peter kind of develops, like, I should be doing more, I should be, and I don't think it's entirely altruistic. I think that, there's a part of him that's like, I can do more, I can be more, I can be recognized for more. I think that's what's going on psychologically there. I think that would be the case with pretty much any of us, we want to be recognized when we think that we're capable of more than we're being credited for. What's interesting about this is, like I said, I think we can all kind of relate to that, being underestimated, underappreciated. And I would say, in looking at this story, that Tony does underestimate what Peter is capable of, and he puts limitations on Peter that are probably not fair. He should be more invested. We all know Tony's a narcissist, and so he's not going to be really thinking outside of himself like he should, and so he misses the boat when it comes to evaluating what Peter is really capable of and what he can be called up to. At the same time, Peter responds to that with this kind of sense of entitlement that says, you know what, I don't care about what Tony Stark says. I'm just going to break his rules despite all the help that he's given me, and I'm going to take his gifts but spurn his authority, and I'm going to do my own thing, And it causes a bunch of problems that Peter has to own up to. So anyway, I think that's something that we can relate to, and I feel like the takeaway there is maybe just for us to try and remember that ultimately our worth is not from the credit we are given by other people, the appreciation we're given by our coworkers or our superiors at work, or anybody else that we're kind of in some kind of social connection with. Our worth is in the fact that the God of the universe, for some reason we can't fathom, made us, these creatures, to reflect in some way who he is, and chose to invest himself eternally, emotionally in us, chose to come down and live as one of us, and live a horrible life and die a horrible death, so that we could be reconciled to him, so that justice could be satisfied, so he could still be a just God, and at the same time so that we could be rescued out of the mess that we caused. I mean, that's love and attention and focus that doesn't make any sense for God to be giving us, and it gives us immense worth, immense significance, far more than any significance could be added by the fact that I could tomorrow start being able to shoot webs out of my hands or wherever. Does Ultimate Spider-Man shoot webs out of his butt? I can't remember. No. They're out of his. They're out of his the tops of his hands. All right. No. That's Spider-Man 2099, not Ultimate Spider-Man. Spider-Man 2099. I don't think there is a Spider-Man that shoots webs out of his butt. Anyway, the other thing that kind of struck me is that Peter. He's not wise. He's lacking wisdom. He's not able to anticipate the consequences of his actions. And I feel like that's something that we as geeks can really relate to. What tends to be true of many of us is that we are unable to anticipate the effects that our words, our tone, our interactions with others will have on them, and we end up, causing offense that we didn't intend, and we or other kinds of problems, just social problems or tension or all kinds of things that we can't anticipate. I think the right response to that is Peter's ultimate response in this, and that is a response of humility, saying, you know what, I really thought I was in the right. I really thought that I didn't have anything to worry about and that I could handle this, but you know what, I screwed up and people got hurt because of me and because of what I couldn't anticipate. And I think oftentimes what we will do instead, when other people get wounded or offended or something like that by something that we did that we didn't anticipate would offend them, we tend to become stubborn and then self-justify. You know, we'll say, well, they shouldn't da-da-da-da, you know, they shouldn't da-da-da. Well, you know, blame other people. Just like, as I said earlier, I think Tony can accept some blame for not evaluating Peter properly, but that does not make Peter justified in what he chose to do. So I think that's what is a valuable thing to take from this movie, is humility is the right response when we realize that something we've said or done has unintentionally had a negative effect on somebody else. We just have to say, crap, okay, whether they should have taken offense or not, lesson learned, I should not use that phrase, that tone, whatever it was that I did, lesson learned, don't do that in the future. Even though we can, you know, maybe even rightly say that the whole world is the problem, not me. Okay, well, if we want to have a good relationship with the whole world, then we need to change something about ourselves. And I think that takes humility to recognize you know, maybe we should be flexible instead of asking the whole world to be flexible. All right, so let's see here. So that's it for this one. It's rated PG-13 for I don't know, because I had trouble with my in-laws' internet. I'm recording, if you couldn't tell, I'm recording on location from my vacation, staying with the in-laws out in Pennsylvania, so that's why I've got the, you know, a totally different background right now. That's why the audio is probably lousy. That's why, you know, everything's different. So anyway, I apologize for throwing everything off if that was bothering you. And yeah, because there was a problem with the computer here, and I couldn't find my iPhone didn't want to behave. I don't know exactly why it's rated PG-13. I would guess it's for action and language. There wasn't, like, you know, sexy, skimpy clothes type stuff going on. So it's probably action and language. But anyway, that's it. All right. I'm done. What do I usually say here at the end? Something. Go to spiritblade.com. We've got like the podcast where you can get this review and a bunch of other content at spiritblade.com, and our audio dramas as well. And then what else? I think it's just the plug for Christian Geek Central. So yeah, that's it for me right now. Thanks for watching. I hope you'll join us sometime soon at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth.